evening, everyone. Well, here we are again in our 5th year with the amazing group of students and coaches. These students have been working diligently over the last couple of months preparing for the Youth Development Foundation of Pinellas County Incorporated. Before I get started, we first want to do the welcome. So may I bring you Delphine Davis to give us our official welcome here.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the AK Academy Great Debate for middle and high school students. We are excited to finally have this opportunity again and happy that you've joined us tonight. I would like to first recognize any elected officials who are here in attendance tonight. Welcome. I also want to acknowledge and give special thanks to Principal Aaron Savage and Mr. McCullough at Lakewood High School, because over the last 2 months, the students have been allowed to practice at their facility at no cost. Thank you. The 2 topics tonight have pushed the students out of their normal comfort zone and expanded their critical thinking skills and public speaking abilities. It even pushed their coaches to think beyond as well. Tonight, you will hear the middle school students debate on one of the most controversial topics in the modern and digital world, net neutrality, which often invites debates from both sides of the argument. In a nutshell, net neutrality means internet service providers cannot block, slow down, prioritize, or charge the consumers extra fees to access certain websites. Their question tonight is, should net neutrality be restored? The high school students will debate on a topic that is often a subject of controversy as well. The question of the third gender can open up one's mind to differing perspectives, allowing them to hone their critical thinking skills. The third gender is a concept that categorizes an individual as non-binary, meaning they neither identify as male or female. Their topic is there a third gender? Each debate coach weekly has challenged the students to intellectually engage with relevant material that promotes problem solving and innovative thinking, as well as assisted them in building links between words and ideas that makes concepts more meaningful. We had quite a few first-time debate students this year, and the goal was to help them understand that debating is about language and logic skills. How can they present a structured and convincing argument constructively? I would also like to mention that the views presented are not necessarily the views of the students and coaches represented. The primary goal is to show the students how to present arguments in a constructive manner and empower them through public expression to become better thinkers, speakers, writers, listeners, and leaders. Just before we get started, I would like to express my gratitude to all of you who so graciously helped us make this event come together smoothly. The participating students, our debate coaches, Ms. Brandy Williams-Miller, Ms. Joycelyn Avery Wright, Mr. James Jackson III, and Mr. James Jackson Jr. Also want to thank Javon Turner, Ms. Manita Moultrie, the Palladium Theater in St. Petersburg College, Pinellas Technical College, Mr. Trevor Pettiford, and Spectrum Bay News 9, the City of St. Petersburg Police Department, Chambers Pylon Law, Juvenile Welfare Board, and many other generous sponsors. We couldn't have done it without you. Through the support of our sponsors, we are able to provide over 5,000 in scholarships tonight. We also have a 50-50 raffle that will support the scholarships for these deserving students. So please purchase your raffle tickets and support these students. Tickets can be purchased by, I think, the finance is walking around, but thank you. She's standing with the tickets. We will now receive an overview of our Academy program by Ms. Manita Moultrie, our Academy Program Director. Then we will have an introduction of our judges tonight and moderator by Ms. Darvette Barwick. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us here tonight for our 6th AKA Academy Great Debate. I am Manita Moultrie, AKA Academy Program Director, and we're excited to have you here with us to enjoy an evening of discussion, opposing argument, and intellectual debate among our scholars. We continue to be proud of our Academy Great Debate program under the leadership of Dr. Delphenia Davis, which offers public speaking, critical and logical thinking, and debate competition for our youth. I'm excited about our topics, and I'm looking forward to the discussion and debate, which is based on research, viewpoints, and facts. The goal of the Academy is to help our youth develop to their fullest potential, set goals, and develop a sustainable career plan. We touch on all aspects of youth development, including education and career development, team building, mentoring, and self-care and self-awareness. And like tonight, we also include critical thinking and public speaking. We also provide subject matter homework assistance and college prep assistance. Aside from our debate signature program, we also have Girl Talk and Boys to Men mentoring programs, and we have right now a group of students engaged in investments in the stock market, and we are also preparing for the end of the year showcase and scholarship program. So let's give a hand to congratulate our 2023 scholars in advance. Special thank you to Dr. Delphenia Davis for her brainchild and her committee, scholars, and coaches for executing another great debate. And special thanks to our primary funders, the Youth Development Foundation of Pinellas County, the Pinellas County Juvenile Welfare Board, and we have several members here tonight, the City of St. Petersburg, and our partners in crime, making sure we execute everything excellently, the men of Ada Rho chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, led by Mr. Bruce Moody. We continue to offer creative and relevant activities which continue to engage, educate, and encourage our youth, and we couldn't make this possible without their assistance. So I ask you all to sit back, take notes, and enjoy the debate.
Good evening. My name is Darvette Barwick, and I have the privilege and pleasure to introduce this evening the judges. When I call your name, please stand and be acknowledged. Ms. Beth Houghton, which is the Executive Director for Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County. Reverend Kenneth Irby, Director of Community Intervention of the St. Petersburg Police Department. Attorney Chad Pilon from Chambers Pilon Law. And the Honorable James Pierce, Judge for the 6th Judicial Circuit Court. Welcome. This next individual doesn't need an introduction. In fact, we claim him as ours. He has been with us from day one of the Great Debate and has witnessed firsthand the growth of the youth who have participated over the last 5 years. I'm speaking of none other than Mr. Trevor Pettiford. Trevor is an Emmy Award-winning broadcast journalist with over 30 years' experience in television news. Originally hailing from Dayton, Ohio, where he started his career at WHIO-TV, Trevor graduated from Bowling Green State University with a degree in radio TV film. Trevor joined Spectrum Bay News 9 in 2011. This is Trevor's second time living in Florida. In the late 1990s, he worked as the bureau chief for WFTV TV in Orlando, Florida. He then moved to Atlanta to work for WAGH TV, and then to Birmingham, Alabama as an anchor for WBTM TV. Trevor's love for AKA is deeply rooted. His mother, Joan Tomlinson Pettiford, and sister, Tiffany Pettiford McMullen, are both members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Trevor is a fitness enthusiast and served as a trainer for FitWit boot camps in Atlanta. In his free time, he has volunteered to mentor high school students at the Boys and Girls Club and with Men in the Making. Trevor is married to Clay Ellerbrook, who is the principal flutist in the Florida Orchestra. Please give a round of applause for our moderator for the evening, Mr. Trevor Pettiford.
Thank you so much, and I'm back again. It is such an honor to be back here with you and to be with such distinguished and intelligent young people here before me, and I'm looking forward to what will be a very lively debate. Now, we want to let you know the rules that you will have with this first section. They will each have 3 minutes to either give their argument or their counter-argument, and then there will be a 2-minute team conference. So, shall we begin? Is everyone ready? Let us begin. Opening statement and affirmative constructive number 1 for 3 minutes. We have Brianna Stokes.
Good evening. Have you ever heard of net neutrality or ISPs? Net neutrality is the principle that ISPs should enable access to all content and applications regardless of the source and without favoring or blocking particular products or websites. Here's some background information before I hand this over to my teammates. According to Mondo.com, net neutrality can help businesses. Net neutrality can increase censorship, slower speeds, and additional fees by ISPs. As stated from What is Net Neutrality and How Could It Affect You, companies like Amazon and Google are based and consumerized where you live. These companies have to send information along the road which is owned by ISP. You may ask, what is ISP? Well, ISP is an internet service provider. It's an organization that provides services for accessing, using, managing, or participating in the internet. Procon.org states net neutrality policies discussion targets issues such as blocking or filtering online content. This website also states that ISPs can slow down the websites or services of small businesses that can't afford to pay for the so-called fast lanes. As told by Answers.yahoo.com, the foremost advantage of net neutrality is that it is helpful in adding competitiveness to the markets, as the users are given more options to choose from. This exact website states net neutrality promotes competition by providing a level playing field for new companies. Procon.org says, without net neutrality, ISP can decide what information users are exposed to. Here's a fun fact from funfact.com. 7 states have adopted net neutrality laws, and several other states have introduced some form of net neutrality. Now that I'm finished, in a moment, you will hear from my teammates about the equality surrounding net neutrality roles adopted under the Obama administration, and how net neutrality helps small businesses flourish and grow. After we finish, you will clearly see why net neutrality can be restored. Now, give it up for my teammates.
With the negative cross-examination, we have Solomon Reese.
Good evening, everyone. You heard my opponent cherry-pick certain information in support of the restoration of net neutrality. However, there is more important information that Renaya failed to mention, which obviously concerns the opposition to net neutrality. Renaya, are you aware that there are several prominent opponents to net neutrality, including former FCC Commissioner Ajit Pai, NetScam founder and inventor, capitalist Mark Anderson, co-inventor of the Internet Protocol Bob Knopf, PayPal founder and Facebook investor Pat Thiel, MIT Media Lab founder Nicholas Negroponte, Internet engineer and former chief technologist for the FCC, David Farber, and Nobel Prize economist Gary Becker. Are you also aware that companies such as Verizon, AT&T, and Comcast are some of the biggest opponents to net neutrality? In fact, since 2005, these companies have lobbied 3 times as much in opposition to net neutrality as of Google, Microsoft have lobbied for it. Lastly, Brianna, have you realized that critics of net neutrality argue that data discrimination is desirable for reasons like guaranteeing quality of service? For example, Bob Cowan, co-inventor of the Internet Protocol, called the term net neutrality a slogan and opposites established it, but he admitted that he is against the fragmentation of the net. Whenever this becomes excluded to other participants, likewise, Vint Cerf, Khan's co-founder of the Internet Protocol, explained the confession of their position on net neutrality, stating, "There's also some arguments that says, well, you have to treat every packet the same. That's not what any of us said. Or you can't change more for more usage. You didn't say that either. There are 2 sides of every story. Let's stick to the side of the whole truth." Thank you.
With the opening statement and negative constructive number 1, we have Nakia McQueen.
Good evening, everyone. More than any other invention of our time, the internet has unblocked possibilities we could just barely imagine a generation ago. And here's a big reason why we've seen such an incredible growth and innovation. Most internet providers have treated internet traffic equally. That's a principle known as net neutrality, and it's one of the most controversial topics in the modern world today. My team and I will argue against the regulations for net neutrality, which will be thought-provoking and relevant. I will start our argument by explaining net neutrality regulations are unnecessary because the internet developed amazingly well in their absence. Most large internet companies, including Google, founded in 1998, Facebook, founded in 2004, YouTube, founded in 2005, and Twitter, founded in 2006, were started and grew to success without net neutrality regulations. According to the former FCC Chairman Dr. Ajit Pai, the internet wasn't broken in 2015. When net neutrality was implemented, and it certainly wasn't heavy-handed, government regulations that was responsible for the phenomenal development of the internet. As a former FCC commissioner, Michael O'Reilly started periods without net neutrality rules were times of innovation and investments. According to the economist Dr. John W. Mayo, the entire rationale for net neutrality ignores the positive economic outcomes in the provision of the internet service that resulted from 20 years of light touch regulations. As an economist, Dr. General R. Faulhaber argued we have a decade of experience with broadband ISPs with little evidence of wrongdoing. A statement from the Internet and Television Associated, signed by 21 large ISPs, stated they remain committed to an open internet and will not block, throttle, or otherwise impair your online activity once net neutrality regulations are removed. Based on those facts, ladies and gentlemen, that were just discussed, when we consider the question, should net neutrality be restored, we answer strongly that it shouldn't, and so should you. Thank you.
With the affirmative cross-examination, Rodney Reese.
Good evening.
Oh, sorry. As you may hear our opponents talking about the cons of net neutrality, there are so many more pros. Let's talk about equality. That's important, right? Net neutrality protects the equal access to the internet. This means that anyone can access the internet the same way you can. This is important for small startup businesses like t-shirt printing. That's a business, but not as big of a business as Publix, Walmart, or Amazon. The internet could help the t-shirt printing business learn how Amazon and other big companies got to where they are now. Another pro to net neutrality equality, is it puts a leveling playing field for businesses big or small. This is good for startup companies like pet sitting. About 70% of U.S. families have pets, and pet sitting would be very efficient, especially for people who leave their pets at home for trips. According to the University of California, net neutrality is the principle that all internet service providers should treat all the data online the same and not discriminate or charge differently based on any criteria. If the existing rules are reversed, some telecom companies claim they would be able to offer a wider range of internet service options at higher and lower price points. The new rules will still require them to be transparent about their practices so that customers can have a clear idea of what is the best plan for themselves. Do you believe that? No. The FCC's current chairman, Mr. Pai, says that under his proposal, the federal government will stop micromanaging the internet. He argues that rolling back the current regulations could restore internet freedom. But how could he be talking about freedom? How could it be possible to be free when the content you are reading online is selected by the broadband you are using rather than yourself? It doesn't sound equal or free now, does it?
With the affirmative, constructive number 2, Jordan Johnson.
Good evening. My opponents have been expressing to you the downsides of net neutrality, but the positives outweigh them, and I'm going to tell you how. Although many have claimed the internet was doing fine without net neutrality laws in place, does that mean we're doing fine without being able to express our First Amendment right of freedom of speech? Let's think about that. With net neutrality, we don't have to worry about ISPs slowing down or blocking websites they don't agree with. Internet service providers may argue that net neutrality is hard on companies time and money-wise. Sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Google, plus even more apps and websites take up even more bandwidth, even though the sites are not all-time visit sites. You may have heard our opponents say net neutrality reduces investment in internet services, resulting in less access and higher costs for consumers, pro-con or states. But with net neutrality, it protects consumers by putting a stop to ISPs speeding, slowing, or charging greater fees for certain online content. Our opponents may claim that net neutrality promotes competition by providing a level playing field for new companies. Michael Beckerman, a former Internet Association president and CEO, said, without net neutrality protections, startups would face discrimination from ISPs' owned or preferred content that's granted a speed advantage through paid prioritization. This would hurt competition and consumers' choice. Think of a future where you have to buy the deluxe deal to get as much info as your heart desires. Internet service providers, ISPs, would be the one to dictate what people can see. Doesn't sound good, does it? I didn't think so. What kind of content, service, or product do you use? What kind of video do you like to watch? Vlog, series? Do you prefer YouTube or Venmo? Net neutrality is what makes all these questions possible and gives us more than one or two options. Without net neutrality, the biggest spender will be the one appearing first, as consumers will value the money they pay more than the service provided. This according to MagePlaza.com. So let me leave you with this thought. With all controversies today surrounding guns, Imagine a website like Amazon or eBay, but they're only for buying and selling illegal guns. In a world without net neutrality, this could be a reality, and that's a reality I'm not comfortable with. Are you?
With the negative cross-examination again, Nakia McQueen.
Good evening, everyone, again. You heard our opponents cherry-pick information in support for the restoration of net neutrality. However, there is no coin with only one side, and net neutrality has its fair share of concerns. I asked my opponent, Jordan, if she is aware that net neutrality is what made the internet a public utility, like water or electricity. But does this mean that this neutrality really protects consumers from higher prices? The answer would be no, Jordan. Of course, ISPs could toggle between prices, things would be a wee bit worse. But on the other hand, companies already charge the damage of slower convergence and not meeting KPIs to their existing customers by raising their fees. Are my opponents concerned with what happens to data? Are you guys aware that with net neutrality, all of us pay the same amount of money in order to have specific bandwidth and specific speed? But this doesn't mean that the data is used the same. Streaming services use a lot more data than, say, browsing social media, which means that some people pay a price that is not equivalent to their use of the internet. According to the internet security specialist from Cool Tech Zone, non-neutrality and consumers pick out what kind of data they need and what kind of use they're going to make would solve that problem and would benefit customers, as they wouldn't be paying for more than they needed. What about net neutrality on free speech? Of course, free speech is one of the most valued goods and should not be taken lightly. But are my opponents concerned about what happens when free speech is abused? Without net neutrality, ISPs ISPs may be more able and willing to preserve free speech and tackle phenomena of cyberbullying and abuse. Not to mention that if ISPs work correctly, they will be able to take down websites and questionable content and banish them once and for all. There is a saying that the truth is somewhere in the middle, but don't forget that the truth is also associated with facts. Thank you.
With the negative constructive number 2, David Poole.
Good evening, all. There are many problems with net neutrality, and I will discuss 2 of them. The first issue is how net neutrality created burdensome and overreaching regulations to govern the internet. According to the Bipartisan Telecommunications Act of 1996, the internet and other interactive computer services have flourished to the benefit of all Americans, with a minimum of government regulation. And it should be the policy of the United States to preserve the vibrant and competitive free market for the internet and other interactive computer services unfettered by the federal or state regulation. In 2017, the FCC reported that net neutrality rules impose significant and unnecessary reporting burdens on ISPs to prove they were in compliance. For example, the ISP CenturyLink estimated that meeting the net neutrality rules created over 5,000 hours of extra paperwork, costing over $134,000 each year. In addition to being burdensome for ISPs, net neutrality regulations exceed the FCC's authority. According to the editors of the National Review, the net neutrality rules exceed the agency's statutory mandate, and there is no title or provision in the Federal Communications Act that gives the agency a clear mandate to impose pricing and content management rules on internet providers, which is what net neutrality does. The second issue that net neutrality has caused is less network innovation. The rise of more sophisticated internet services, particularly video content, has created greater demand for on-bandwidth. This, according to many providers, has forced the need for greater spending on capacity, diverting funds away from service innovation. Service providers maintain that while they're able to put extra changes on the likes of Google and other major developers of resource-intensive internet platforms, they can divert these funds into upgrading networks and extending service availability. However, the FCC's own industry-funded research has shown that although investment fell by 2% in 2015 and 3% in 2016 while under net neutrality rules, many of the largest ISPs increased innovation spending. As they say, ladies and gentlemen, the devil is in the details.
Thank you.
And the facts are the facts. Thank you.
And with the affirmative cross-examination, Cranston Cumberbatch.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A big support and impact on net neutrality was the Obama administration. TheVerge.com states that President Obama has come out in support of reclassifying internet service as a utility, a move that would allow the FCC to enforce more robust regulations and protect net neutrality. President Obama came out strongly for the concept of net neutrality, saying that an open internet is essential to the American economy and increasingly to our very way of life, stated by USAtoday.com. According to the New York Times, President Obama said that it is common sense that the same philosophy should guide any service that is based on the transmission of information, whether a phone call or packet of data. This comment and this movement that President Obama was giving support to the FCC. What is the FCC, you might ask? The FCC is the Federal Communications Commission. It regulates interstate and international communications through cable, radio, television, satellite, and wire. The New York Times also states that Tom Wheeler, the chairman at the time of the FCC, said that he agrees that the internet must remain an open platform for free expression, innovation, and growth. The internet is too important to allow broadband providers to make the rules, said FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler, according to cjohnline.com. The Obama White House Archives.gov states that President Obama calls on the FCC to take up the strongest possible rules to protect net neutrality, the principle that says internet service providers should treat all internet traffic equally. It also states the FCC votes in favor of strong net neutrality rules to keep the internet open and free. According to NPR.org, Obama's FCC had imposed a strict set of regulations on internet providers to ensure they wouldn't be able to prioritize certain websites and apps over others. According to Politico.com, a federal appeals court upheld a White House-supported effort to make internet service providers treat all web traffic equally, delivering a major defeat to cable and telephone companies. Politico.com also states that the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals in a 2-1 vote affirmed the FCC's latest net neutrality rules, which consumer groups and President Barack Obama have backed as essential to prevent.
Thank you.
That is definitely not.
Now we will have 2 minutes for team conference. If we could return to our tables now. And we'll continue with the negative rebuttal for 3 minutes. Bernard Stokes.
Good evening, everyone. Earlier, you heard the affirmative team suggest how net neutrality promotes competition by providing a level playing field for new companies. However, the affirmative team failed to mention how net neutrality reduces investments in internet services, resulting in less access and higher costs for customers. Between 2011 and 2015, when net neutrality rules were being debated by the FCC, the mere threat of implementing them reduced ISP's investments in net neutrality upgrades by 20 to 30%, 150 to 200 billion reductions in investments. During the years that net neutrality rules were in place, 2015 through 2017, investments in broadband fell for the first time ever in non-recession periods. According to AT&T, that chilled investments in broadband threatened to slow the delivery of broadband services to all Americans, particularly in rural America where broadband investments is needed the most. Net neutrality regulations also prevent ISPs from charging large content companies such as videos, streaming services, additional fees to cover the cost of massive bandwidth they use. Preventing such paid prioritizations fees places the cost of building the additional capacities necessary to carry the content onto ISPs, and these costs will trickle down to consumers in the form of more expensive internet packages which are paid by all, even those who don't use the stream services. Lastly, everyone keep in mind that competition is an essential aspect of our country's capitalist economy that is guaranteed by law. Therefore, we cannot place competitions above how net neutrality limitation results in higher costs for consumers when America should have better options to save money. Let that sink in. Thank you.
With the affirmative rebuttal, Madison Bell.
Do you own a small business or know someone who does? As a small business owner, it is important you have an understanding of net neutrality. According to WASP Barcode Technology, this topic is so controversial that the U.S. Court of Appeal had to weigh in. They had to weigh in because internet service providers like Verizon, AT&T, and Comcast had to charge for use of their networks. Meaning, these providers have the ability to pick and choose what consumers see online and then charge content providers. Listen up, small business owners and future ones. I'm going to tell you a couple of ways net neutrality could impact your business if not restored. You will have higher costs. For companies that can't afford the more expensive fees, possibly small businesses like yours, they will be subject to a slower website than larger competitors, effectively compressing small companies out of the marketplace. Net neutrality ensures small businesses are able to compete with larger companies. If net neutrality is eliminated, small businesses may not be able to afford to share content and therefore unable to compete with larger competitors. According to WASP, they have dedicated a lot of time and effort to create videos that feature and promote our productively solutions. Without net neutrality, your unequal balance could occur when larger companies can afford to cut deals with ISPs for the speed, while larger businesses lacking those types of funds will be forced into slower speeds which in today's 4G and 5G world would force any new businesses to close. If there are changes in net neutrality, there could be serious problems between the government and the people and their small businesses. According to publicknowledge.org, the internet is amazing because it empowers entrepreneurs and consumers. Anyone can start a business and immediately reach a worldwide consumer base for a fraction of what it could have cost just for two decades ago. A free and open market by giving small businesses and startups the opportunity to compete with a big box stores, chains, and internet-only businesses. Businesses reach consumers online, create millions of jobs, and contribute over $1 trillion to our nation's GDP. To sum all this up, net neutrality can guarantee pretty much that small and larger than life businesses start on equal foot when it comes to digital marketing and promoting through social media. The same won't be able to happen without net neutrality.
With the negative rebuttal, number 2, and closing statement, Alea McClellan.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight you heard the affirmative team advocate for the restoration of net neutrality. However, the affirmative team failed to mention how offensive, dangerous, and illegal content is accessible to everyone and difficult to remove due to net neutrality. Many of prominent opponents of net neutrality had been discussed earlier by my teammate Solomon, have also argued how that the rules easier for the underage users for access legal but age-sensitive sexual content. A wide range of commercial and business web filters to let users restrict access to certain services for websites on their devices. However, net neutrality opponents argue that younger users will merely use their mobile phones through which they can access illicit websites without adult supervision. The UK government's online safety bill also sets out plans to require age verifications on websites deemed to inappropriate for underage users, such as porn streaming sites. However, the bill is currently on ice on the government undergoes internal transformation. There's also an argument that the removal of net neutrality laws will allow ISPs to crack down on the peer-to-peer file sharing websites, which are a major source of illegal content on online piracy. When it comes to children and young people seeing illicit content online, it's not just reporting to and discussing that the parents, teachers, or trusted adults. Almost every social media site, ad platform, and gaming console have features in place for reporting and flagging that content. However, according to the last report from Ofcom, it seems for little children and young people are doing so. But not me, because I ain't trying to get in trouble at home. I'm a good girl. But back to topic at hand. Removing net neutrality makes it easier for ISPs to filter dangerous content, although this one away from censorship. Ladies and gentlemen and judges, as I close, I know that internet is a vast place and one of the few places where things are not prioritized by revenue, but rather by consumers themselves, as everything is built safety, user intent. However, as much net neutrality seems to be only fair solution, there are some problems when it comes to being practical and indeed fair. Thank you.
And finally, with the affirmative rebuttal, number 2, and closing statement, Journey Beard.
Good evening. Undoubtedly, it should not be a question on whether or not net neutrality should be restored. Do you watch Netflix, play video games, or use Facebook, Twitter, or Google? I know you do. If you use the internet, you should be in favor of the restoration of net neutrality. Life without it means that internet service providers are able to slow down your internet speed while you're accessing certain websites. I know we've all been in a situation where we tried to Google something and it just loads and loads forever. Don't you just hate that? But should we have to suffer just because one company doesn't like or agree with another? What if we were Googling how to perform CPR? Net neutrality not only protects you, but also your rights. It prevents you from paying excessive fees and protects your First Amendment right of freedom of speech. Without the protection of net neutrality, ISPs will be able to delete your content or slow it down if it goes against their personal or political beliefs. Net neutrality is not only the fact of internet equality, but also social and racial justice inequality. Net neutrality protects the voices of the unheard and brings light to the injustices that were once in the shadows. Net neutrality creates a level playing field for newer and smaller businesses. It makes it so that larger companies do not have an unfair advantage. Do you own a small business? Does the internet play a big role in your business? Most business owners record or photograph their products to promote business, but will that be possible if services go down and prices go up for simple online platforms? To sum it up, if you're a small business owner or rely on one, it should be undeniable that we need net neutrality laws in our society. Other ways that the restoration of net neutrality will improve our lives are providing better access to health information and options, empowering people, improving education and learning opportunities, and creating a better world as a whole. My teammates have shown to you that net neutrality is a strong attempt to keep the internet free and easily accessible. This includes streaming platforms such as YouTube, Netflix, HBO+, Hulu, Disney+, BET+, and many more. Without net neutrality, streaming prices will shoot up and we'd be stuck watching the same 3 channels on cable. Many people were concerned that the internet would become a segregated madhouse. Corinne McShern with the Electronic Frontier Foundation expressed that the abolition of net neutrality laws would create a free-for-all that we have not seen on the internet before. She is petrified of our internet's future. In closing, not only is access to the internet helpful for individuals' economic well-being, but it is also essential for the growing of our digital economy. The internet helps people organize, collaborate, and share information with large numbers of people. Without the restoration of net neutrality, this could all be something of the past. Thank you.
Let's give all our debaters a round of applause. Now, as they exit the stage, and we will be joined by the high school students, I want to tell you what an excellent job, again, they did here. Truly, truly well done. You know, the art of debate involves mastering skills of obvious intrinsic value, the confidence to speak in public and make sense, the construction of logical arguments, and most importantly, the willingness to hear others' arguments and to respond to them. Now, as we prepare a debate for the high school scholars, I would ask you to clear your mind of what your personal beliefs may be and listen to both sides of the argument. This topic is often a subject of controversy. The question of gender can open up one's mind to differing perspectives, allowing them to hone their critical thinking skills. The mere concept of categorizing an individual as a specific identity and the fundamental belief about whether gender can differ from one sex assigned at birth is closely aligned with opinions on gender issues. As these issues of gender and rights are addressed and the broader landscape around gender identity continues to lift, there are a complex set of views around these issues. So I present our high schoolers that will debate this issue. We will begin with the opening statement and affirmative constructive number 1 for 6 minutes by Mackenzie Davis Coward.
Good evening. The controversial yet intriguing topic we'll be debating on today is there a third gender? However, to truly understand and grasp the concept of a third gender, we must know what makes a third gender and how it could be defined. A third gender can be defined as a category of individuals who do not identify with the limiting of male or female, but rather as neither, both, or a combination of male and female genders. There are various outlooks, perspectives, and views when it comes to the categorization of the third gender. Third gender could be defined as someone who is non-binary, which according to the LGBTQ Foundation means that an individual feels as if their gender cannot be defined within the strict margins of gender binary. Third gender could even be defined as an individual who considers themselves pangender, which is known as a multi-gender identity due to the vast array and diversity of genders within an individual, which can therefore interchange depending on the person's culture, life experience, environment, and own personal happiness and satisfaction. Additionally, third gender can even be defined as bigender, which is the idea that an individual fits into both categories of male and female and feels comfortably and equal as either gender. When discussing the possibility of a third gender, a majority of individuals assume that one's gender is defined as what they were born as. However, what defines one as male or female is their sex. When comparing gender and sex, we know that sex is determined by individuals' genetic and biological makeup, as well as the specific sex chromosomes that identifies each of us as either genetic male, XY, or as genetic female, XX. On the other hand, gender is known as one's own personal identity depending on their own beliefs, characteristics, and personal preferences. When trying to understand the idea and concept of a third gender, we must also understand that when it comes to gender, some people do not fit into the limits of checking one box, pressing F or M, or choosing a male or female icon. Gender goes beyond just pink or blue, Barbie dolls or toy cars, and bows or bow ties. It is a sense of feeling that one resonates with and what they most closely identify with. Truly, gender is a subjective feeling of maleness or femaleness within a person. Although it may not have been recognized, gender fluidity has been seen all throughout history. For example, in the 1800s, within the Native American community, multiple gender identities have not only been accepted, but celebrated as well. Within the Native American community, the term Two-Spirit has been used to refer to the gender non-conforming members of the community who embody both male and female spirits. According to the New York Times, this term became so popular that now more than 150 Native American tribes acknowledge third genders in their communities to this day. A greater emphasis on the Two-Spirit people were displayed and discussed in the 1992 documentary, Two-Spirit People. In this documentary, it explains how individuals who have both male and female qualities are seen as conduits between the physical and spiritual world. They are even put in positions of power within the community. Another prime example is a group of people within Indonesia's community called the Rera. Rera are members of the community who were assigned male at birth but identify as women. The existence of the Rera dates all the way back to the early 19th century, and they even have built and formed their own places of worship. In addition, another example of gender fluidity in history is within India. In 2014, India's non-binary and transgender individuals who were named Hydra were finally granted legal recognition with the official designation of a third gender on identity documents. Despite currently being recognized officially, the Hydra have been around for thousands of years. The term Hydra is used to describe some people who were assigned as male at birth, but do not identify as male and wear makeup and clothing that is more associated with women. As you can see, gender fluidity has been something that has been seen all across the world and all throughout history. Another crucial topic regarding the possibility of a third gender is the term transsexuality. This term was defined by the American Psychology Association as a strong and persistent cross-gender identification and persistent discomfort with one's biological sex. Transsexuality manifests itself in many forms. The underlying psychology varies, but most transsexuals feel an unhappy mismatch between their biological sex and their gender identity. Therefore, the allowing of the third gender lets them freely express themselves and how they feel without any limitations or restrictions to who they are and who they want to be. Furthermore, when we allow the inclusion of a third gender, It promotes equality and the growth of diversity. Accepting people for not just their similarities, but their differences as well, helps to grow and build a more peaceful and unified environment for all. It is impossible of achieving equality without understanding the ways in which gender intersects with sexuality, disability, race, class, and many other forms of structured discrimination. Gender equality is about dismantling the whole gender binary.
Thank you. With the negative cross-examination for 3 minutes, Tatiana Shelley.
Our team accepts that a third gender as an idea is a known category. We understand parts of the world have a history of third gender. By history, meaning has either discussed the topic in the past and has concluded upon it, or is still in debate as to how they want to proceed with the idea. This includes Pacific Islands, India, and Mexico. However, within the United States, the laws were made to uphold the binary system. This classification of gender in two distinct parts, of that being male and female. This is the classification by means of the social system and/or culturally. An example of this would be within the hospital. After childbirth, it is common for the OBGYN to determine the sex of the baby when born. 9.9 times out of 10, the baby is said to be male or female. The remainder of that would be 0.25 to 0.05%. These births are considered ambiguous, open to more than one interpretation, but nonetheless are still biologically given a sex. This, again, is because biology defines gender as male or female. Our opponents will use the terms to bolster their case like non-binary, intersex, and transgender. However, those terms do not separate the concept far enough for the agreed-upon discussion this evening. Non-binary and intersex are terms that do help explain the anatomical ambiguity that may exist. The articles written on the third gender provides controlled confusion on this topic and often lead readers to believe the issue is more widespread than reality. Transgender totally contradicts on the basis that most transgender understand the current binary assignment and choose to convert to the one. The Constitution lays a path for gender equality based on male and female. This has important consequences that would be detailed in our team's presentation. Equality has expanded over the years to clarify LGBTQ community. When this country was established, sex was not used as a factor in defining people. There is a law that clarifies the binary system. Supporting third gender has consequences that could affect security, proper identification, and is not relevant to the quality of people under the country's existing binary system.
With a 6-minute opening statement and negative constructive, Danila Copeland.
Good evening. My name is Danila. Tonight, I am giving our team's opening statement of the negative constructive on the topic of the debate. Is there a third gender? There is not a third gender as a defined legal sex for identification, period. Gender. The male or the female sex is a key part of personal identification. Gender is also a social construct and legal status. Sex assigned at birth is seen as our gender identity. You need your gender to be identified on your driver's license, passport, and overall national security. You also need to be personally identified for your house bills, personal insurance, and in the pursuit of your careers. Personal identification plays a key role in our lives. Doctors identify babies by looking at their genitalia to identify them, determining, then using the information to complete the birth certificate, an official documentation of a person using the binary system. Personal identification can help people identify others based off their appearance. Society has a custom and usage position with clear identification, which affirms the binary system. The World Health Organization defines gender as socially constructed and sex as characteristics that are biologically determined. Biologically, female and male have differences. The female pelvic bone is border and oval-shaped. Female have XX chromosomes while male have XY chromosomes. The male pelvic bone is narrow and heart-shaped. Looking at the human body, females have ovaries and produce eggs, and males have testes and produce sperm. You must follow the science here. Neither woman nor sex appear in the Constitution, showing the Founding Fathers did not really focus on sex as a factor as developing the law of the land. In other words, social construct. To be fair, they made civil rights for women, and to make more equality between male and female, they made laws for bathrooms in schools dealing with gender. The laws of the land cleared up the case to use a binary system to conduct ourselves in all matters. Our team did review the Zim vs. Blinken case, a case dealing with an intersex client. Intersex is the condition where the genitalia is identified as both male and female. It was reopened and is still an open case from the United States Federal Court for the District of Colorado. Although the client is intersex, Dana's parents decided to raise Dana as a boy. The client, Dana Zim, feels that people who do not identify as their personal identification should be allowed to designate other than male or female. Surprisingly though, a lot of intersex organizations have always been against being identified as a third sex. Dana felt otherwise. As Dana was filling out a passport application, it asked if Dana was male or female, and for a picture of a birth certificate. Dana could not answer the question, but sent the picture, where Dana's gender is marked as unknown. Dana's application was denied, causing Dana to take this situation to court. While the birth certificate was marked unknown, it is apparent that during this person's life, no other specific test was performed to confirm their personal position. Science can be followed as mentioned earlier. Yes, the Department of State recently added by executive order the inclusion of non-binary option on passports. In other words, the category that allows a person to check that they are not female or male. And while our opponents may or may not be aware of this case, we studied the case to prove several points. Point A, the reminder executive order through presidential directive expires at the end of the presidential term. We all know the politics of this nation remains at a dead end, which will most likely cause a reversal of this order. Point B, science could have helped this person fall into the transgender category that helps support the binary system established. We find that gender is the most interesting term used to help carry the explanation of the need for a third gender. We feel strongly, as just mentioned, that this topic bolsters the binary system concept, and by supporting in such a fashion, removes the need to use the term third gender. The word gender, we feel, is often misused against the word sex. Listen closely, gender versus sex, really the same sort of definition. In the May 6, 2020 article from the American Bar Association, this article discussed the need of the 19th Amendment to clarify gender discrimination. In short, the article focuses on a young transgender lady self-identifying, trying to vote in person in an election in 2018 and was not allowed to vote because on her identification it stated male while obviously presenting as female. The main reason for this issue was that it was admitted they could not afford to get all their identification changed to reflect the current gender or sex status. Ironically, since this little incident, she could vote by mailing in ballot. The question was of equality in this case for the future. The 19th Amendment is clear, and it provides that the right of citizens to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. So while this issue exists with transgender people in terms of either not completing identification items that helping with voting, driving, medical, etc., along with sometimes they shy away from completing documents related to certain business matters because they want to use gender as a category because they have not completed the overall scientific process.
Thank you, Daniela. With the affirmative cross-examination for 3 minutes, Malcolm Woods.
Good evening, everyone. My team and I We'd also like to thank everyone for being here tonight while we debate the topic. Our affirmative team stands for the judgment that there's more than two genders. We've debunked the evidence the negative have brought to us today, so let's review. The negative will point out scientific facts and differentiate human males and human females. The negative also pointed out the number of chromosomes one male or female have based on the sole criteria of production of reproductive cells to claim there's only two sexes. Female, which capable of producing large ovals, which is 42%, and male, which produces small sperm count, which is 35%, according to CNY fertility. Well, what if some people are born with both sex organs? Or how some females have higher testosterone levels than many men? The topic of tonight is a fight between physical opinion and psychological opinion. By nature, physically or biologically, there's two genders, male and female. Their gender is psychological. It is however you choose to identify across a masculinity-femininity spectrum. It is fluid and changeable. Though many people are happy to identify as a particular gender of their choice for the rest of their lives, there are no rules. The two terms are often conflated, but it's important to distinguish between them. The question of tonight's debate of there being more than two genders dated back to history within cultures, and even actors such as Shakespeare to prove there's numerous genders. When dating back to the history of Shakespeare, history blurred the lines of masculinity and feminine female roles so the roles can be switched, no matter the sex, and can be portrayed a male, female, bigender, being a person identifying as male, and female, or agender, being people who don't identify as a gender at all. After dating back to the history about the topic, many cultures have believed in there being more than two genders, being Asian, African, Pacific Island cultures, and Native American cultures. In Native American cultures, there were members called two spirits because of being gender-varying individuals. The term was later on adopted in the late 1990s and early 2000s to encourage the replacement of the term British shape, being American Indians who didn't conform to one gender and sexual normals. Another example is the Pacific Islands culture. There was also a multiple gender tribe in the earlier 20th century in the Samoan indigenous culture called the Fa'afafine. Fa'afafine are male or female at birth, and later on embody both masculine and feminine gender traits, and later on fashioned the beautiful, psychological, not physical, part of their body to the world. They also held a sacred cultural role as educators of ancient traditions and rituals. And after all that we stated, we can continue to argue the topic, but it's clear that bigenders have been here and will continue to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm. With the affirmative constructive for 5 minutes, Sanaya Dunbar. Hope I said that first name right.
Is there a third gender? My opponents argue that there are only two genders. They may support this because of the gender binary classification of gender into two distinct opposite forms of masculine and feminine supported by the CIHR.ca. In consonance with my team's argument, sexualdiversity.org stresses that gender identity is the personal sense of one's gender. Gender identity can correlate with the person's assigned sex or can differ from it. In most individuals, the biological determinants of sex are congruent and consistent with the individual's gender identity. They continue with, however, while a person may express behaviors, attitudes, and appearances consistent with a particular gender role, such expression may not necessarily reflect their gender identity. The website later lists, not exclusive to, but 95 gender identities, supporting that there are not only 3 genders, but numerous others. WilliamsInstitute.law.edu divulges such information as an estimated 11% of LGBTQ adults in the U.S., approximately 1.2 million people identify as non-binary, according to a new study by Williams Institute at UCLA School of Law. For those of you who missed the definition my teammate provided for identifying as non-binary, the Oxford Dictionary describes non-binary as denoting, having, or relating to a gender identity that does not conform to traditional binary beliefs about gender and not relating to, composed of, or involving just two things. This simply means that one's gender identity does not necessarily match or agree with the standards of social and/or cultural beliefs. But why feel like you have to conform or fit into a category to make other people feel comfortable? Society relies on identity to empower themselves and provide their being with a sense of affiliation to or with something. Dictionary.cambridge.org defines identity as the fact of being or feeling that you are a particular type of person or organization. If everyone confined themselves to one or two label boxes, we wouldn't live in such a diverse society. My opponents may argue that sex and gender are one and the same. The American Medical Women's Association contrasts the idea of sex and gender. They begin defining sex with terms such as biological, chromosomes, male, female, intersex, sex organs, and hormones. The website then lists defining terms for gender as man, woman, other, masculine, feminine, gender nonconforming, and socially constructed. I find it interesting that the American Medical Women's Association brings up the idea of gender being viewed through the lens of a social construct. Sociologydictionary.org defines the definition of social constructionism as the theory that all reality and meaning is subjective and created through dynamic interactions with other individuals and groups. Examples of other social constructs include age, race, beauty, and the idea of normalcy. OpenStax.org uses the example of school to describe social constructions of reality. It reads, your school exists as a school and not just as a building because you and others agree that it is in fact a school. In a sense, it exists by consensus. Look around. We all here agree that this very building is the Palladium Theater, correct? But why don't we simply view it as the building that sits on Fifth Avenue? It's because we all have agreed unanimously as a people that this is the Palladium Theater, and it makes sense. If society can agree on the social constructs of beauty and normalcy, then why not a third gender? The idea of a third gender is in no way new to the world. Religionandpubliclife.harvard.edu shares that in Hindu society, people of non-binary gender expression have played important roles for over 2,000 years. Indian society and most Hydras in South Asia consider themselves to be third gender, neither male nor female, non-transitioning. Open your hearts and take a moment to imagine the ridicule, rejection, and exclusion of the people who choose to live differently from society's idea of normal. The embarrassment doesn't just stop at the mockery and rejection. The United Nations of Human Rights of High Commissioner says the following about people who identify as gender diverse or transgender. When they are persons of color, belong to ethnic minorities, or are migrants, they are particularly at risk of violence, including of killings, beatings, mutilation, rape, and other forms of abuse and maltreatment. Some of us have the ability to live life in the way we please without the constant feeling of trepidation or fear of extremely high risk of violence due to the way we identify through gender. The website conveys, in order to practice their right to recognition before the law, gender diverse and trans persons are often victim to violence in healthcare settings, such as forced psychiatric evaluations, unwanted surgeries, sterilization, or other coercive medical procedures, often justified by discriminatory medical classifications. How would you feel? Thank you.
With the negative cross-examination for 3 minutes, Isaiah Reese.
Good evening, everyone. As mentioned by my teammates previously, the opposing team attempts at validating third gender as a concept or accepting item in society, which is problematic. The idea expressed did not mesh with the society's established rules and laws. Our opening construct cleared up the issue as it relates to terms intersex, transgender, and non-binary. Allow me to briefly go further into a compelling conversation. The law of the land that set rules for bathrooms in schools for example, is it clear on male and female room designation and are guided by state building codes that direct building design. The difficulty of bathroom usage lies in gender identity that does not match gender assignment. In a CNN study performed by U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention stated 1 out of every 4 students that identify as transgender survey reported abuse which is about 25.9% of approximately 37,000 students. That 25.9% was 15% girls and 10% boys. While this debate nationally is far from over, our position on this debate is that gender identification is respectful for bathroom usage without the case of being uncomfortable. Sports is another area that a third gender/transgender uncertainty creates problems. Point in case, if LeBron James decided to become a woman, would it be right for him to play in the NBA where he would score 840 points a game? Now think about that. I am sure some concern would arise from women who are scientifically born a female that will have to guard him. The Leah Thomas story. The young man who took the appropriate hormones to convert to a female is another example of a person who affected a sport, which is swimming. Gender/sex equality aside, although there may be evidence to support that the verified hormone treatment has caused little effect in the story, the concern remains of fairness and true equality since the person still scientifically and anatomically is a male. The boxer Patricio Manuel is another confirming story. A recognized female who grew into a female adult and became a female professional boxer, becoming a 5-time natural amateur champion, as well as competing in the 2012 Women Olympics. In 2012, she decided to transition to a male and made his professional debut as a male boxer in 2018. Boxing rules allow boxers discreet and whom to fight. The professional league is basically avoiding fighting a female in the ring. The point of this example and the other is to further the scientific position beyond the hormone treatments to actually anatomically surgery, which will help transgender matriarchate into society. Thank you.
With the negative constructive, number 2, for 5 minutes, Zoe King.
Good evening. My name is Zoe King. We shall all know that every doctor is required to check the gender when each baby is born. We also know that this very country was built and even established on the binary system of male and female. A lot of people think that they are physically a different gender than what they are assigned to when they're born, but they are not. This is called gender dysphoria. Yes, you may believe deep down you are a woman, but your gender identity is a man. This is referred to being called transgender. Referring to yourself as third gender can complicate many things like your passport, driver's license, and even your birth certificate. The Equality Amendment is based on and only on male and female genders. Putting a so-called third gender in the midst can complicate things. So what even is sex, and is there more than two? Well, sex is a word that we use to describe reproduction. There are two and only two sexes. We cannot pick nor choose our sex. Yes, I know the other side has made you think, is there really a spectrum to sex? But no, there is not. In an October 21st, 2019, an article published by the Women's Palace UK interviewed several women that are in professions related to human development. For example, one lady interviewed stated that a woman can only produce a large or small gamete. They will not be able to produce both or something else. So biologically, a third gender does not exist. It cannot be created. It's not possible. In this article, the interviewee also cleared up and stated, I know that's a popular theory. There are only two sexes in humans. As I say, sex is the language we use to describe reproduction. People have potential to be either large gamete producers or small gamete producers. No one produces both, and no one produces something else. She further clarified the position of two sexes by stating, some people are infertile, but that doesn't make them sexless. Doctors can tell what sex infertile people are, hence, We have different treatment options for males and females to help with fertility problems. To be slightly explicit, doctors do not look at the testicles of an infertile male and wonder if they should be producing sperm or ova. Finally, when she came to the category of intersex as a third sex, the interviewee took a strong position and stated, "I do not agree, mainly for the same reasons that I don't agree that sex is a spectrum. It seems odd to me that anyone would look at a man with Klinefelter's disease, which is a condition where males have an extra X chromosome, and a woman like me with Mayer-Rokitansky-Kusterhaus, a rare congenital disorder affecting female reproduction system, and try to argue that we are the same sex as each other." I also want to take a few moments to discuss further the term transgender. When people use the term transgender, we have found that most people themselves identify as a sex, either male or female first. Then, if they are serious, they normally will start taking hormone treatments to start to transfer themselves. And then there are some that will take it to the final step with surgical procedures that will complete their physical changes on their bodies. Many people that want to be a different gender start buying black market hormones and even surgeries. They do this just because they cannot find the right health care. This proves how transgender, while used to help define third gender, really affirms the idea of the binary system, male and female. Thank you.
With the affirmative cross-examination for 3 minutes, Kiana Chambers.
Good evening. Today's society classifies people into a variety of categories that determine a person's persona. Today, people often ask, does there exist a third gender? What is a third gender? A third gender is a concept in which individuals cannot be classified as either male or female, either by themselves or by society. Humans today identify themselves as more than one thing. It could be male, female, non-binary, etc. In the traditional sense of male or female, gender is simply a matter of social and cultural difference, rather than biological difference. Gender can also refer to a variety of other identities not categorized as male or female. Research from the article Third Gender has found that various cultures have long recognized members who buck the biological binary. South Asia is an example of this fact. In South Asia, people that identify as third gender are called hydras. A hydra considers themselves to be of a third gender, neither male nor female, and not in a transitional state. Some hydras are intersex. Intersex is when an individual is born with reproductive or sexual anatomy that does not fit the boxes of either male or female. More findings from the article Third Gender in the Hydras found that at both Hindu weddings and births, hydras are expected to perform dances, songs, and blessings. Hydras are normal just like the male and female gender. Hydras have a unique sense of life like every human being. India has taken the transgender community and named them as the third gender community. Evidence of this fact can be found in the article Supreme Court Recognizes Transgenders as Third Gender, which states that Supreme Court of India created the third gender status for them. The idea of a third gender has been considered in other countries. Transgender people will no longer have to compulsorily term themselves as male or female. Research from the article Third Gender found that the Australian government announces that passports will include a third gender option. It also found that Germany will allow parents to register newborns as indeterminate. Indeterminate is the state of being unknown, unestablished, or undefinable. Greek philosopher Plato stated that the third gender was the distinct kind with a bodily shape and a name of its own, constituted by the union of the male
Thank
and
you.
female. Thank you.
Now we'll have a two-minute team conference. Thirty seconds. Okay, let's continue with the negative rebuttal for 3 minutes. Tatiana Shelley.
The opposing side continues to state issues and items to bolster the support of a third gender in this society. With due respect, our team's explanation sets a clear path to respecting the known binary system. I would like to point out two things that our opponents have said. They use the term transsexuality, which is transgender, and our opponents have used psychological positions, but science is more important here. In a June 2022 article from Pew Research Center, this article clears an important position. Most Americans favor protecting transgender people from discrimination, but fewer support policies relating to medical care for transgender. Many are uneasy with pace of change of transgender issues. The uncertainty lies along the lines of transgender designation separate from sex versus sex assigned at birth. Americans do remain split. However, our debate team's positions stand on merits of transgender people. If they choose to align with a sex different than assigned, they should complete their transformation. This would eliminate discrimination and confusion. In the Supreme Court case RG and GR, Harris Funeral Homes versus Equal Employment Opportunities, Commission Amy Stevens, and a transgender who sued discrimination by an employer. This case cleared the fact that transgender was not a contemplation of the founding fathers. There is also not enough court cases on the deep definition of the term sex legally. The court agreed to discrimination, but that it fell on the employer, the funeral home, as a contemplation matter of either subconsciously or consciously using sex as a determinating factor to discriminate against a person who is transgender. This position helps court use the Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act to clear the path for no discrimination by employers based on the use of the term sex. Thank you.
With the affirmative rebuttal for 3 minutes, Michael Moden.
Good evening. In European culture, hermaphrodites appear regularly within discussions of sexual generation and sex differences in medieval texts. According to models originated by writers in the Greek Hippocratic corpus and popularized in the Middle Ages by Pseudo-Galenic Tractatus Spermatic, hermaphrodites were neither male nor female, but an intermediary sex that combined male and female characteristics in equilibrium. The Book of the Holy Trinity, one of the earliest alchemical manuscripts written in the 15th century, discusses hermaphroditism in the alchemical sense, exploring Jesus Christ as the perfect hermaphrodite. The book authors then states that God was and is eternally his own mother and his father, human and divine, the feminine and the masculine. The alchemical hermaphrodite is an eminently desirable union of opposites that transcends the normal operations of nature, a disruption akin to metal transmutation, the ultimate goal of an alchemist's work. In more recent history, the term hermaphrodite has donned a new name, intersex, which is an umbrella term used to describe people born with sex traits that do not fit binary medical definitions of male or female sex or reproductive anatomy. These findings then lead to new questions. What does it mean to be a male, female, or neither? Who has the authority to answer this question, and what are the criteria? Before the technology required to analyze ovarian and testicular tissue was developed, doctors focused on visual markers, particularly the penis or clitoris. However, sometimes the vagina, uterus, and menstruation were offered as proof of womanhood. When biological cues proved inconclusive, medical men then turned to social indicators, such as a person's mannerisms, clothing, or taste, to make their determination of sex definitive. One certain court case concerning this matter delved into the goal of Dana Zim, a transgender woman who wanted to obtain her passport that identified her as using a non-binary X marker instead of a typical F or M marker. They sued, and the initial federal court ruling worked in their favor. However, an appeal court deemed it inconclusive. 3 out of the 5 reasons the State Department stated as a cause of an issue with the passport were seen as arbitrary, due to the fact that intersex people like Zim make up 1.7% of the population. The judge of this case then stated, requiring an intersex person to misrepresent their sex on this identity document is a perplexing way to serve the department's goal of accuracy and integrity. Thank you. Thank you.
With the negative rebuttal and closing statement for 3 minutes, Marley Poole.
Good evening. I am Marley. Our debate team has clearly stated the case of the marriage to not need a third gender. Though the idea is accepted in certain societies, the laws of this country were established on a binary system of male and female. Biology defines gender as male or female. Our opponents use terms to bolster their case, like non-binary, intersex, and transgender. However, those terms do not separate the concept far enough from the agreed-upon discussion this evening. In these United States, the Constitution lays a path for gender equality based on male and female. The Zim and Blinken case demonstrated the confusion of passports and the potential issue related to identifications of persons and the potential of security breaches based on proper identification. Neither woman nor sex appear in the Constitution, showing the Founding Fathers did not really focus on sex as a factor as developing the laws of the land, in other words, social construct. The word gender is often misused against the word sex. The term gender is interplayed with those who consider themselves transgender, when transgender as a concept of ideology circles around the binary issue of male and female. The 19th Amendment is clear. It provides that the right of citizens to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex, as explained in the American Bar Examination article that discussed the clarification of a transgender person seeking to vote and ultimately protected based on the account of sex. Scientifically, our team is clear. Sex is not a spectrum. A man with Klinefelters, a condition where males have an extra X chromosome, and a woman, like me, with MRKH or Mayor Workitansky Custerhouse try to argue we are the same sex as each other simply goes against the science. Our team believes in following the science. Finally, we respect transgender, intersex, and non-binary people. A third gender definition is unnecessary. From the Constitution, all amendments in the case explain on employer discrimination. It is clear we have enough laws in place to protect all citizens and do recognize it takes all of us to open our minds further to accepting all people for who they are.
And finally, this evening, with the affirmative rebuttal and closing statement, Jordan Moore.
Good evening. As we advance through the years, it has been shown throughout society that we have progressed past the need for gender labels and roles. It is important to acknowledge that the Eurocentered or Western construct of gender dimorphism is not imperatively held by other standards. For centuries, the existence of people who did not fit the sex or gender categories of male and female have been known but typically dismissed from reports of certain non-Western societies. While in the Western European tradition, they have been marginalized, stigmatized, and persecuted. Much of the concern of the gay activists in Western society is the forced conformity to the two-sex or gender model. Gender dimorphism is not inevitable. It has only been in modern times that most societies have upheld a dimorphic gender standard. From the academic journal published under the University of California, exploring the history of gender expression, during the pre-colonial culture, the Inca society in Peru worshipped the Chicoy Chinque, an androgynous dual-gendered god. During rituals, they had shamas, or synagogue officials, dressed in androgynous clothing as a visible sign of a third space that negotiated between the masculine and feminine. However, there are some modern societies that are finally recognizing the existence of a third gender, such as the Hajaras in Pakistan and Bangladesh. As my teammates mentioned earlier, their government fully recognizes them as being a part of the third gender, being neither completely male nor female. In India as well, people who identify themselves as being a part of the transgender umbrella have been given the status of third gender and are protected by law despite social ostracism. Gender is defined as either the male or female division of a species, especially as differentiated by social and cultural roles and behavior. Merriam-Webster.com states that among those who study gender and sexuality, a clear delineation between sex and gender is typically prescribed because they are not interchangeable, with sex as the preferred term for biological forms and gender limited to its meanings involving behavioral, cultural, and psychological traits. Therefore, gender is not determined by sexual activity, sexual orientation, nor genitalia. For example, North American societies have native tribal groupings with each unique aspects and social structures. The academic journal, Changing One's Third and Fourth Genders in Native America by Will Roscoe includes that there were many biological female tribal members who became warriors, chiefs, or managed to acquire wealth and power within their own tribe. And for some of those tribes, they designated biological women who took on a male lifestyle as being a part of the third gender, meaning you can't determine gender by what's in your pants or what's between your legs. Thank you.
And on that note, let's give them both a huge round of applause for an excellent job. You know, contrary to what some may believe, I believe our young people are capable of handling any subject matter intelligently and can debate it better than some adults, I believe. So thank you once again. We'll have my alarm's still going off. If we can have the middle school come back up and join us as well. Again, giving them a round of applause. As they join up here, we want to also give thanks to the coaches that have done an amazing job with these young people. Get this. With the high school coaches, James Jackson Jr. and Joe Avery Wright. Thank you so much for what you did. And with the middle schoolers, Coach James Jackson III and Brandy Williams Miller. Thank you all so much. Now, as we wait for the judges to give their final totals there and find out who our winners are this evening, I'd like to get a little statement from them. Before we get that, though, I want to remind you of the raffle that's still going on. Is the ticket woman still over there? There she is, right over there. That the raffle's still going on, so we'll wrap that up before we get to the finals of here. So if you still want to buy your raffle ticket, please do that now. As we wait for the results, I wanted to poll the judges now to get a sense of how they felt the debate was going on. We'll go ladies first, left to right. My left, or my right, your left.
I have it on.
Are you able to grab that? Yeah, there.
Is it on? Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad I was quiet during the debate. I am just amazed at the quality of each and every one of you. Many years ago, I debated in high school, and I worked really hard at it. So I come with some appreciation for the preparation that's involved, the time that's involved, and the effort it takes. I'm also very impressed that all of you spoke on subjects that were challenging and would be challenging in different ways for adults to debate. So congratulations.
I, too, echo those comments. I had separate notes for both middle and high school, but the thoroughness of the explanations, the manner in which they were presented in a logical order, and coupled with the sheer difficulty of public speaking in front of folks some you know, some you don't know, and being judged while doing it is a tremendous task, and I think y'all handled it very well. These topics don't really have settled definitions. They don't have settled law. They don't have the direction. So they're perfect topics for y'all to continue to develop and see how you take this nebulous issue and whether you like it or not, argue for it one way or the other. So well done.
You are all winners. Let's give them a big round of applause again. I'm ecstatic about this evening of ebony excellence, right?
Yes. Yeah.
The combination of logic and language that you've demonstrated here today. I said to Judge Pierce as we were settling in here in the judges area that these topics, I agree with Chad, are really relevant to today's issues. And your explanations and arguments demonstrate to us tonight that the future is in good hands. I enjoyed it, and I say bravo to each of you, and you are all winners.
And I would only echo what was just so eloquently stated by my fellow judge, and say to you all, excellent presentations. My hats are off. Big props to each and every one of you to get up on that stage and to make your argument. So I also teach myself as an adjunct professor at Stetson University College of Law, and I will say this, I see a lot more poise and confidence up there on that stage than I see sometime at school. So I want you to be mindful of that. And I always like to use any opportunity to speak as a teaching moment. So the couple of things I would emphasize to you to make yourselves even greater is, one, make eye contact with your audience. Don't be afraid to get away from your notes. If you miss a point, so what? But when you make eye contact, when you're making an argument, it makes your argument just so much more persuasive. And then the second point I'm going to leave you with, and then I'm going to be quiet, is when you ask a rhetorical question, take a moment and pause to let your audience have an opportunity to reflect on that question. And it will be much more impactful. But once again, excellent job to the coaches, to everyone, to the organizers. Thank you for inviting me here today. And I continue to wish you well. And I know without any doubt, we got some lawyers up there.
I would just like to say that I got an education tonight. You all, whoever chose those topics, really, really thought about it. And the information that you all gave young people didn't happen overnight. You spent some time in research, and it showed. And the coaches, you did an excellent job. And again, like Mr. Kirby said, you're all the winners, and you did a great job, and thank you.
And I had the pleasure last weekend of announcing some of the award scholarships for the Pinellas County School District, and I said then what I'll say again. There's nothing more heartwarming, inspiring, and reassuring to be in a room filled with brilliant young black children. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's what it is tonight, and thank you so much. So let's hear a little bit from them, shall we? I wanted to talk to some of you about just how you felt about your debating skills and what you learned out of it. We'll start with you first.
I learned that in order to be a good public speaker, that I do have to emphasize my points and make my argument more believable to myself so that I could present that to the audience and make them believe my argument.
And I'll go back here and ask one of our, oh, you stood up first, so I'm going to come to you. What did you learn from this debating experience?
I learned how to take my time while reading, but also stay on track while reading, and also how to pronounce my words when I'm reading.
That's very important. I'm going to come over to this side. You stood out there, young man, or young lady. Here, you come out and tell us what you learned.
Well, I learned to take my time, don't talk too fast so I can actually pronunciate my words. Yeah, that was hard.
That was great. Thank you. And we'll come over here. Go to the far end right here. What did you learn most from this debating experience?
I learned that even if I'm nervous, never slow down, try to make sure I keep it in time, pronounce everything right, and just make eye contact with my audience.
And I'll ask something from the coaches here. Now you've been here for a little while. How did this group fare compared to ones in the past?
Well, actually, this is the youngest group I've had so far, a majority of 9th and 10th graders, and I thought they did a wonderful job. Tough subject to really work on and educate weekly, but my hat's off to them. They're bright stars.
And you handling your group of high schoolers.
Well, first I want to say you all did an amazing job. These have been some very rough topics, and having them dig deep has been an experience. But they did a wonderful job, and I'm very proud of them. This was not much different of a group for me from last year, but they've grown, and I've noticed the growth in them, and so we've worked on some small points, some that the judges mentioned. But as they mature and as they continue to do this, I see their journeys being very bright.
And how did you see your young people?
Woo! Let me see. No, they did a great job. Coach Williams and myself, we've been here since day one, several years ago. This is the first time that I had students that have never debated before. So we spent a lot of time researching, trying to put our argument together. So after seeing the performance tonight, I'm very pleased.
And finally, how did you feel about your young group here?
I have to echo Coach Jackson, whoo child. But they came through. I'm very proud of all of them. They've shown a lot of growth. Their confidence stood out, and like you said, proud of them. This is, I think, most of their first time debating, and they did a good job.
Well, again, you all did an excellent job. How are we doing? We still? Okay. We still talking? Okay. We can still talk. We wanted to find out, okay, I want to find out what, because I just talked with a couple of you about what you learned. What, anybody else have anything else they want to point out about what they learned most out of their subject matter and what they want to learn more about? Ah. Okay. You got one? Oh, okay, okay. Okay, let me run over here. Of course, it's way over here on the end, isn't it? There you go.
Say the question again?
Oh, you want the question again? What did you learn most out of this, and what else do you want to learn?
What I learned most is that regardless of the like topic, like, 'cause we had the downside, which means that we didn't have like more of the ups. So regardless of the topic, there's still always research that can be found. And what I learned is that if you actually do it instead of just being lazy, you'll be better in your presentation.
That says it all right there. That said it all right there. Thank you, thank you. Because a lot of people, when they form their opinion, they're just lazy and they don't do the research, do they? That's exactly right. Well, now, on that note, I believe we have the middle school results. You got both. You want to do the announcement of this?
One thing that we have not discussed in the past is the criteria that they're judged on. So I thought it would be interesting just to share that the criteria is cross-examination, effective use of historical evidence and content knowledge, use of persuasive appeals, and overall performance. And so with that, we do have the middle school scores, and we'll announce the middle school team. Oh, sorry. Let me do this first, before all the excitement. Each middle school student will receive a prize, a monetary scholarship prize. And for tonight, we had over $5,000 in donations to divide up among the teams. So give yourselves a hand. The winners on the middle school team will each receive $250. The team that is, I don't want to say they're not the winner, but the next team, the other team, each member will receive $100. So they are all winners. On the high school side, each winning member of the team will receive $300, and the other team members will receive $150. So I'll let Mr. Pettiford announce the winning team.
Okay, for the middle school, the affirmative has a total score of 457, the negative 424. So the winners is in the affirmative, 457. Can we have the winning team come up?
Congratulations. And can we get Mr. Jackson's team to come out for a photo and get their paperwork? Congratulations, first-time debaters, first-time debaters, first-time debaters, congratulations.
Okay. With the high school results. The negative, 477 points. The affirmative, 515 points.
So now I get to take the personal privilege of announcing that this year, for the first year, the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha have taken both categories. Both categories. Congratulations. And I know we've stirred the pot now. So next year I already know that the Omegas will be bringing it. But congratulations, congratulations. And now can we do the other team? Congratulations. And again, the winners of the high school will each receive $300, and these participants will each receive $150. So no winners tonight, no losers tonight.
You all did an outstanding job tonight. And I'm not getting in the middle between this debate, between the two of them. And we have the raffle. So I get to pick the number? The number is 9. I got it. The winning ticket is 272-622-291. $272-622-991. That must be my ticket. Going once? Going twice? We'll pick another ticket. Because if you ain't here to get it, you ain't getting it. Next summer, it better not be my ticket. 272-622-82. I'm picking out the wrong thing. I need to mix them. Wait, did we hear? Wait, you go 272-622-82. Is this over here? Oh, we got to check that number. We're going to check this number right here. That's a 4. No. Congratulations.
You can see our finance.
You go to finance over there. She'll check your ID and make sure it's all legal and everything. Now, if I could have, for our closing remarks, I would like to bring you Janae Skipper, president of the Zeta Upsilon Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha, and Bruce Moody, president of the Eta Rho chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated.
Thank you. All right, I don't need to hold this. Good evening. I'm Bruce Moody. I'm the current president of the Eta Rho chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. On behalf of myself and my fellow president, Janae Skipper of the Zeta Upsilon Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, I'd like to say thank you to our moderator, Mr. Pettiford, the judges, the coaches, and the students who have done an excellent job. I wish I was as smart as you guys. I probably could have done something with my life, but here I am. Again, great job to all of you. Congratulations. Hope to see you all again soon. And lastly, I'd like to present a check for $300 to Dr. Delphina Dee Davis from the Ada Row Educational Services, which is directed by Frank Brunson. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Janae Skipper, and I am the president of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Zeta Upsilon Omega chapter. I would like to just ask that you all join me once again in congratulating all of our student participants. Thank you all very much. Year after year, we are educated and enlightened by our young people. And for that, we could not be more proud of you. The amazing work that our scholars put into researching their facts, both for and against the issues, it continues to astound me. This AKA Academy flagship program is the brainchild of our first vice president, Dr. Delphina Davis. And to just see this vision unfold and grow to where it is today, it is commendable. Thank you, Dr. Davis and the committee, for all of the work you put in behind the scenes. The ladies of the Zeta Upsilon Omega chapter, we join the men of Omega Psi Phi fraternity in acknowledging and thanking all of our students, our coaches, our judges, and our donors. But parents, there is a special thank you to each of you, for we know if it was not for your commitment in bringing our young people out, none of this would be possible. Additionally, I would like to take some time to say thank you and acknowledge our funding partner, JWB. Could the representatives of the Juvenile Welfare Board please stand to be recognized? And project manager here with us this evening. Thank you very much. Again, as previously stated, we would like to thank again Mr. Trevor Pettiford. Year after year, you have supported us in this event, and we are so excited to have you, and we thank you. But at this time, I'd like to also recognize the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha and the Zeta Upsilon Omega chapter members. If you would just please stand to be recognized. Additionally, could we ask the members of the Ada Row chapter of Omega Psi Phi if you would please stand up to be recognized as well at this time? We are also proud of this joint partnership that we have indulged in for years to come, and we are also excited for years to go to continue our partnership with you. And to our parents and attendees, we thank you for your support, and until next time, we bid you a farewell and a good night, and we will turn it back over to Dr. Davis for any closing remarks. Good night.